and opinions expressed in this program and not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, Year in Review 2022, and this morning we're looking on health and wellness. In the second watch, Jamaica, what's below your surface? What's below your surface? For our social media question, we ask, of all the precious elements known to man, which would you prefer to find in your backyard? And what would you do with it? Please share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
Good morning. So today's I quote is an integrity quote, rather, and it says there are three constants in life: change, choice, and principles. This quote is by Stephen Covey.
Good morning, Jokal.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm well. I'm feeling better and I'm doing well. Thank you.
Great. How was your trip to Hanover, by the way? Did you bring back any gold?
Oh, yes. I actually have some in the car, so I'll get some and bring to you.
You have some in the car?
Yeah, man. Whatever. Yeah, I have some.
All right. Look out for me, okay?
No problem.
All right. The first watch will be back after this break.
We all invest every day our time, energy, and emotions in ourselves, family, and friends, because at the end of the day, it's worth it. That's how we'd like you to feel when you invest with Sagicor Investments. So we invest in research and in developing investments like our Sigma Global Funds, the largest and best performing in the industry, and stock brokerage with the lowest online trading fees. So when you invest with us, we want to make sure you feel like it was worth it. Sagicor Investments. Think wealth.
You work hard to make Jamaica a first-class destination. Isn't it time you receive the 5-star benefits? Retire smarter with the Tourism Workers Pension Scheme, a portable plan that also provides your family with financial security in case of your untimely death. It's easy, affordable, and accessible online. Retire and relax with the Tourism Workers Pension Scheme. Visit twps.myguardiangroup.com or call 876-927-4105. Guardian Life. Live secure. Live easy.
NIS pensioners, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security reminds you to submit your completed life certificates to ensure continued payment of your NIS benefits. Remember to sign the life certificate and have it witnessed by any authorized person indicated on the life certificate before submitting it. For further information, contact the National Insurance Scheme 876-922-8000-14 or visit the Ministry's website. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you. A message from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, similar to other sectors within the society, Jamaica's health sector made much of the headlines in 2022. So, what were some of the major issues? What were the repercussions? And how were they addressed? Answer these and other related questions, we have online Dr. Brian James, President of the Medical Association of Jamaica, and Mrs. Patsy Edwards Henry, President of the Nurses Association of Jamaica. Good morning to you both, and Happy New Year.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year to you and your listeners.
Thank you. Is Nurse Patsy Henry on? All right. Not hearing her as yet. Okay. All right. So, Dr. James, still with us, right?
I am.
Great. Nice having you with us again. Let me hit the ground running with you, Dr. James. From your perspective, what were the health and wellness highlights in Jamaica 2022?
For 2022, I think we could characterize it as a year of recovery, as a year of emerging from the cloud that we were under for the previous 2 years. It started off a little shakily with the advent of the Omicron variant, which started maybe in December of 2021. But it was fairly clear from relatively early in the year that this was going to be, or even before that, that this was going to be a milder version of COVID. And therefore, there was the possibility that we were going to be able to resume some level of normal operations. So I think overall, the period of 12 months would be properly characterized as recovering from some of the ills of the previous 2 years.
Yes. Any other major headline stories related to the health sector you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, that was this sort of major thing that would hit you. Of course, there was a lot made of monkeypox. It was reasonably clear from early as well that this was not going to be a pandemic in the same way as the COVID was going to be. So people became quite fearful and became quite concerned about what was going to happen. But that was almost a nothing burger, in the context of what we're going after. In terms of even recovering from the COVID, we spent much of our time trying to make good some of the setbacks that we had in the previous 2 years. For example, the surgeries that were being done in the government and private hospitals, there was a huge backlog of those. Huge, but more than 7,000 patients in certain categories had actually missed their operation because of COVID. Some of them, not many, were in the sort of critically ill cancer kind of categories, but some of them were. They needed their operation. And so the health sector turned its attention to trying to make good this backlog. And this was not easy, because it involved spending a lot of money on improving the infrastructure, which had sort of taken a beating with the COVID. There was always a problem with healthcare worker availability, with staffing, and so on. So it started in a bit of a shaky manner, but I think we're on track now to really and truly make a dent in the backlog.
Yes. And any concerns you have, though, in terms of how the year ended in particular, especially in regards to the vaccines, the COVID vaccines, and also the updates that we would get on a regular weekly basis. What are your concerns in regards to those?
Well, the issue with the vaccines, that started from the vaccines came on board. I think the Jamaican population seemed to have been significantly prone to listening to the naysayers and the ones who who make up stories about what's happening with vaccines. And so Jamaica was unique in some regard, certainly in the Caribbean, and even on the world stage in terms of having a quite a low vaccination uptake, whereas the world number was over 50%, maybe closer to 60%. We were languishing up to the end of the year at like 24%. And the Caribbean had their numbers are also like more than twice our numbers. So that was a disappointment in terms of uptake of vaccines. The the latest even the Omicron variant, the latest versions of the virus, they do not respond. They have what is called immune escape. They do not respond very favorably in our case to the vaccines, nor do they respond very favorably to previous infection. So the immunity that you get from previous infection or from the vaccine,
It's
that
waning.
does not suffice, right? And that is why there is a recommendation to give boosters. There is now the recommendation to give Omicron specific vaccines. We do not have that in Jamaica as yet. But the good news from a vaccine point of view is that when you look at the number of persons who end up in hospitals and in dying, there is a significant difference between the ones who are vaccinated versus the ones who are unvaccinated. A lot more than 90% of people who die from COVID now are unvaccinated, although
Yes.
24% of us are vaccinated. So it's a mixed bag.
hmm Of course, Doc, we're not getting the updates as we used to. Would you have preferred that to have been continued?
Well, given there are two things that really contribute to something like that. For example, people nowadays, because the virus, the symptoms of the ones of the infections that we're getting are now so mild. When you look at the Omicron, people do not get tested anymore. People, when they feel unwell, first and foremost, we're all in denial. So many of us are in denial. I can tell you that. Um, when you feel unwell, you think it could never be COVID. That what is that? That's done. So
Mm.
nobody gets, certainly a very, very small proportion of people, particularly those who are mandated to test, will get tested. So the test numbers in the Ministry of Health and Wellness are a lot lower. The hospitalization numbers are dramatically lower. At the height of, let's say, the Delta wave, at the height we had like 800 and odd people in hospital from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now you're talking about 60 or 70 people in all of Jamaica admitted because of COVID. So the numbers are so low that it now becomes difficult for the ministry to to put out meaningful numbers each day. So I understand the fact that they are not giving sort of significant updates every day anymore or every Monday anymore.
We're okay with it as it is now.
As long as they remain, and I'm hoping that they remain very vigilant about the world situation, about how things are changing in Jamaica, and respond to it and tell us about it.
The wearing of masks. Any concerns there? With it's coming out of 2022.
Yes, I am quite concerned about that. Whereas people feel like COVID is over and they do not get tested and so on, and we understand because things are mild. The problem is that if we do not do things to stop transmission, the more the transmission takes
I'm
place.
sorry, yeah, you talk about transmission. So sorry, Doc, we're up on a break. Hold that
Okay,
thought, it's right.
no
Mm.
problem.
Get busy with a Bizstart, Bizgrow, Bizboost. With a JN Bank Biz Loan, you can't lose when you want to grow more on your business too.
JN Bank Small Business Loans.
Have a loan for you.
Helping you succeed is our business. Tell us your business and let's help you start it, grow it, or boost it. Borrow as low as 10,000 and up to 100 million Jamaican dollars. Enjoy flexible payment terms and affordable rates. Apply now. WhatsApp 876-295-1298. JN Bank. We'll help you find a way.
Building your house and looking for everything in hardware from ground to roof? Save the hassle. It's Robinson and Sons Hardware, dedicated to giving you the best. Call Robinson and Sons Hardware 876-715-1724 or visit 18 West Palm Avenue, Port Antonio, Portland. If we don't have it, we'll get it for you. Robinson and Sons Hardware, Port Antonio, Portland, dedicated to giving you the best. 876-715-1724.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this, the first watch, we are reviewing 2022 in regards to health and wellness. And in so doing, we have online Dr. Brian James, President of the Medical Association of Jamaica. Yes, Dr. James, you're talking about the mask before the break. Please continue.
Yes, I was saying that I'm a bit disappointed with the situation in relation to the mask. In April or so, there was a move by the authorities to remove the mask mandate. And at MAJ, we thought, and we stated that we thought that this was premature, primarily because, one, the mask has been shown to offer protection against transmission of the virus both ways. And two, it has not been shown to be harmful at all, which means that there was no pressure to remove it. And the fact that COVID is not over, we do not want to do anything to enhance transmission.
Was that declaration made in America
Say that
last
again?
year that was over?
I think there was a political statement which implied that, but I mean, that's not a decision that any person can make. The numbers are there to show that there is no such thing as COVID being over. And the point that I was going to make is that the more the transmission that takes place is the more new variants and subvariants become prevalent in the society. So each time the virus is transmitted, a new variant has a chance to come to the fore. And we do not know what the characteristics of a new variant will be. It could be more severe. It could be more transmissible. Right now, the newest variant, what they're calling the Kraken variant, that one is the most transmissible, the most contagious form of COVID that has ever been seen. And that is the one
in China?
No, that they haven't found any in China as yet. But that is the most common one in the US now. 40% of all the positives in the US are Kraken, and this only took place over 3 weeks. 3 weeks before, it was 1%. Now, up to 2 days ago, it was 40%. In another 3 weeks, it's going to be the over 90%, and it will come to Jamaica.
So let me get it clear. You are advocating that the wearing of the mask be mandated again?
Well, certainly be encouraged, be very strongly encouraged. Mandates in Jamaica, certainly even during the height of COVID, were not well followed. And I don't think we need to criminalize things like that, but we really need to put a lot of pressure on the public to see the wisdom of wearing your mask. Certainly in crowded spaces, certainly when you're around people who are vulnerable, and certainly if you're having any symptoms of respiratory symptoms at all.
Mm. Well, we had spoken earlier about the monkey pox, and I think you said it was a nothing burger. Why did you say so?
Because it did. So the problem with any one of these things is the pressure that they put on the healthcare delivery system, right? That is really why COVID was a big problem, because it caused us to have to shut down our regular operations. It caused us to have to deal with high numbers of deaths and severe illnesses and so on. Nothing like that would have happened with monkeypox. Nothing of the sort at all. So the nothing burger part is related to how hysterical people became over something which did not have any dramatic impact on the delivery of healthcare.
So what's the status now in terms of that? Any updates can give us on that from your perspective?
I do not have any, sort of specifics on it, but numbers. I'm not even aware of any persons in hospital now with that diagnosis. There might be one or two around the island. We did not have a huge spread with lots of hospital admissions. So, I do not have a specific number for you.
Right. And of course, in 2022, there were some concerns and reports about the deaths of babies making the headlines. What's your take on that?
It was unclear to me, to everybody, whether or not. All right, so let's start off with the conditions in the hospitals. Coming out of COVID, and even sort of as a baseline, we do have space issues. We do. The numbers in hospitals are typically around 100% of capacity, sometimes a lot more than 100% of capacity. When you have situations like that, it makes it difficult to practice and enforce infection control and prevention measures. And that may or may not have contributed to the issues that were uncovered at Victoria Jubilee Hospital. One thing that we need to be aware of is that in July and August, those are what we call, like, I'm an intensivist, we call that prem season, right? Because you know that September is like, that's when the most babies are born in Jamaica. Maybe arising from activities at Christmas time.
An offshoot from December.
Right. So that's what we call that crop season. So the babies who are going to be premature are going to be born in July and August. They're going to be born early. So a large number of prem babies are delivered in the major delivery centers across the island. And prem babies are the ones who are most vulnerable to whatever mortality and morbidity effects there are around. So the fact that there is an increase in a number of babies who get very sick and who die in July and August is not unusual. This was not an unusual year, right? The numbers may have been a bit more than they're used to seeing, but
it wasn't alarming from your perspective.
But I mean, I can't. I would have to actually look across the board and
Mm.
examine the causes and so on, for me to say whether or not, it's of major concern. Anybody who dies is of major
Yeah.
concern,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, to apply a cause to it, I would have to really look very closely at the numbers.
Yes. In 2022 as well, there was news about the continued migration of nurses, and I guess doctors as well. How has that, from your perspective, affected the health sector?
Yeah,
Or
it
continue?
continues. It continues to affect the health sector. It is one of our big concerns. Um, I mean, it may have ticked up slightly in 2022, but it has really been a big problem. Even pre-pandemic, I remember we've had to go recruiting persons from Cuba. I'm talking now nursing from Cuba and from India, and to a lesser extent, I think from Nigeria. So we have had that problem for a while. Of course, it's now back on the front burner. The doctor situation, much of the posts in the government service, these were created maybe in the 1960s, and at that time our population was a lot less than it is now, and so the numbers, and when you compare the WHO recommendations, a number of doctors per thousand population, um, to what we are
Yeah.
on the lower side. So
Oh.
we're understaffed where doctors are concerned as well. And the medical council, when I last spoke to them, they were telling me that there has been quite a significant increase in the number of people asking for recommendations, um, with 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 the expectation that they were going abroad.
Mm.
So it is a problem in medicine as well.
Yeah. Um, and if my memory serves me right, Dr. James, was there some mix-up of salaries in regards to some doctors last year?
All right, so that is something that there is a move within the administration to make some adjustments to the compensation packages by all workers across the government.
Yeah.
So they're planning to sort of roll in all of the allowances into basic salary, and increase the basic salary significantly. And that would, I assume that what they're trying to achieve is, or what the positive effect on salaries or on the worker would be, that much of what you get now that wasn't pensionable before would now
Mm.
become pensionable. Now, they tried to roll that out in December, and that never went well. The
Mm.
system was not prepared to just roll out a complete change in the way people are paid over that short period of time. So a number of people were quite disgruntled over the Christmas. Um,
Oh.
they didn't get what they were expecting. I think I haven't heard a lot of murmurs going around, so it may have been substantially fixed, or people became comfortable or accepting of the idea that their Christmas was not going to be as lavish as they thought it was going to be. But they'll have some savings in the new year. I'm not sure
Oh.
exactly,
Well.
why it has really calmed down.
Yes. Well, Doc, I think you have given us a comprehensive overview of what transpired in 2022 in terms of the major stories. And we look forward to a better year this year than it was last year. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Look forward
Have
to
a-
looking at environmental health during this year and
Yes.
healthcare financing.
Thank you. Okay, listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Talk to Jan Bank today to find out about achieving your own sweet home in 30 days. The time by Jan Bank Mortgage is
Just about 7:31 on the Sound of Love 101, the family station.
Building your future, helping you everything that you do. We're in your corner, supporting you. I'm gonna keep my goals on track, keep moving up, no turning back. I got Sagicor Bank, Sagicor in my corner. Nothing's gonna stand up in my way. I'm moving to a brighter day. Sagicor Bank in my corner.
If you use music for any commercial purpose, you need a JCAP license.
Of course, and I benefit when my music is used commercially.
JCAP, the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors and Publishers, protects the rights of its members and worldwide creators of musical works by issuing licenses for the use of these works.
If you use music for any commercial purpose,
You need a JCAP license.
comply with the law.
Call JCAP at 948-5937 and 948-6439.
Get a JCAP license now.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Gleaner, ministries scolded for tardiness in preparing financial reports. And then AUGD flags 3 agencies, recommends 1.7 billion, that's with a B, surcharge. Interesting. In the Observer, Integrity Commission wants registry that will expose negligent contractors. And also in the Observer, designed to fail, shortage of social workers opens door for trouble at children's homes. And in the Loop News, alleged illegal ammo importer wanted after absconding bail. And then finally, Jamaica not among 10 most powerful Caribbean passports for 2023. Barbados ranks highest in the region. Jamaica is not among the 10 most powerful in that regard. Those are some of the major stories in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. Of all the precious elements known to man, which would you prefer to find in your backyard? And what would you do with it? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
He knows my name.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of global crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today. 876-220-6474. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church.
This is a reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
He knows my name.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Jukal for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. Of all the precious elements known to man, which would you prefer to find in your backyard? And what would you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to hear
Listen,
what
there
the
are so
responses
many.
are. Jukal,
Yes, there's so many responses here. Dr.
can imagine.
Toussaint. So let me just go quickly. So Merlin from Clarendon says, as tempting as that is, I wouldn't want to find any. They will want to sell out. I will just continue with my cash crops. Tanisha from St. Catherine says, diamond or gold. Try to get a good price, then call the authorities to search for more, as that is the law in Jamaica. Apparently, the government has the right to such commodities.
Yeah.
Marcia said, I would like to find gold, but I would take it to a jeweler to get it tested before telling anyone. All right. Lisa said, good morning to you. I would like to find diamonds. I would make a mining from it and employ people. All right, cool, no problem. Lynette is saying, I would rather find good soil so I can plant foods and flowers. That's not bad, Lynette. Thank you for that. And then Phyllis has a voice note. So let's hear what Phyllis is saying.
Well, I would like to find gold and oil in my backyard. Those are the two important ones, the gold and the oil, so I could make Jamaica a better country.
That was from Phyllis from St. Thomas. And those were the responses I have from the WhatsApp line. Listen, this question is killing me.
Gold and oil.
Yes.
Diamond and rich soil to do more planting. Interesting responses.
Yes.
Want to talk those who responded. Okay. Well, as we segue into the second watch, Gold Rush. That was Monday's Gleaner headline in reference to the belief that gold was recently discovered in Chester Castle, Hanover, and thus the rush. Is this truly a golden opportunity for wealth creation? Or is it a tacit reminder that all that glitters is not gold? Well, to give us much needed insight into this matter, we have online Professor Simon Mitchell. And Professor Simon Mitchell is a professor of sedimentary geology and head of the Department of Geography and Geology. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Yes, good to have you with us.
It's nice to be with you.
Great. Now, what is the latest update, Professor, re the gold rush in Chester Castle, Hanover? Has it been confirmed that there's genuine gold there?
There is no gold there. It's as simple as this. It's for a start, when you actually look at the geology of the place, it's in relatively young Eocene rocks, only about 30 or 40 million years old. But not really the rocks in Jamaica we would expect to find gold. And as has been said, there are things that glitter that are definitely not gold. And of course, the well-known one is fool's gold, which is basically also called pyrite. That's its proper mineral name, which is actually just iron and sulfur. So it's one of those things. We commonly find pyrite in lots of different sorts of rocks. Mm-hmm. It can occur in igneous rocks. It can occur in sedimentary rocks. So it's a very, very common mineral, and it is sometimes confused for gold. It's also called an indicator mineral that indicates, well, if you've got lots of sulfides like pyrite, you might have some gold. But then you've got to look at the sort of rocks that you've got, and in this case, the Chester Castle, they're not the rocks you would expect to find gold in.
So you are confirming it's not genuine gold?
Yeah, I would say so, because the pictures I've seen of it, you can actually see the crystals. And that sort of shape of crystals, which are sort of cubic-shaped crystals, cubes, is very typical of pyrite, and it's not at all typical of gold.
You mentioned fool's gold. I'm just curious, Professor. Why do they call it fool's gold?
Because it can trick people into believing that they found gold. It's simply that. It's everybody knows what gold sort of looks like, and if they find something in the earth that has the colour of gold, the natural thing to assume is that, oh, you found some gold. But as I say, there's a lot of other things. that have that sort of color that are not gold. And obviously its name comes from the fact that people have mistaken it for gold in the past.
How well prevalent would you say that this fool's gold is in Jamaica at present?
Oh well, there's many places you can find it. I mean, if you go up to places like Neighbours Bank and you break open some of those rocks, those have got lots of speckles of fool's gold in it. If you go into northern Clarendon, around Bella's Gate, and extending to a place called Gold Mine, there's lots and lots of fool's gold in that sort of area. When you find some of the shales, so you're up in sort of, let's say, in northern St Mary, you've got sedimentary rocks which contain small amounts of fool's gold, and even some limestone can contain fool's gold. So it's pretty common.
And yet still we have not been hearing reports of even the fool's gold being found in these other parts. At least it's not making headlines.
That is true, but I think also there's some other things in there. A lot of these districts are districts where people are actually, there are companies which are looking for gold. Okay, and that information gets to the local people. So they know that there's all these things in there that are fool's gold and are not real gold. So there is knowledge in the country about what fool's gold is and that it is not valuable. But not everybody knows that.
And I'm happy you mentioned about not being valuable. Is it that there's absolutely no value to it? Absolutely nothing that...
Well, the only thing...
Wealth creation?
No, not really. The only thing you can possibly use it as a mineral specimen. Some people collect minerals, and if you get nice, pretty, shiny pieces, you know, there is a market for those. But it's not the sort of thing that's going to make somebody rich. and when you look at what it's made of iron, and it's made of sulfur.
Yes.
And you can't even use it as a source of iron, because when you add a little bit of sulfur to iron, it becomes very brittle. And that's not what we want to happen with iron, is it?
So absolutely nothing, because even when we had this sargassum concerns, and persons were saying that it could be used, for other purposes and products.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying with fool's gold, nothing.
Not really, no. It's a common mineral. It doesn't really. You can't really use it for much at all, no.
Okay.
Some minerals are like that. Some minerals don't have much of a use.
Yes, at least so far. So what are the telltale signs of a genuine gold vis-a-vis fool's gold?
Okay, well, the first thing, you sort of, when you look at films and things like that, or if you look on some TV programs, they talk about nuggets and things like that, which are often rounded. Now, nuggets do occur in places, but they do not occur, as far as we know, really, in Jamaica. Most of the gold in Jamaica is microscopic. Mm-hmm. So it is actually very fine-grained. If you're lucky with a lens, you might be able to see one or two flecks of gold in the right places. But in general, the only way you can tell you've got gold is by doing chemical tests on it. Mm-hmm. So you've got to assay it and look at what particular other metals are there as well. And gold doesn't occur by itself, usually anyway. Certainly in the places where we find it in the Caribbean region, it's usually associated with things like fool's gold, also with some copper sulfides, which are governo chalcopyrite, and there's a number of others. Now, copper sulfides are a good source of copper, and some of them can look like gold. So often you get gold.
I'm so sorry, Professor. I'm so sorry, Professor. We're up on a break. Could you just hold that thought? We'll be right back.
Certainly, yes.
Thank you.
From
generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
Havco Curamine Plus will remove inflammation from the body. With no inflammation, conditions such as type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol cannot stay in the body. Tanquest is a combination of herbs and fruits to remove toxins and pathogens from the body. Tanquest is antifungal, antiviral, and antibacterial. Tanquest will destroy free radicals and make you stronger for longer. Get your Curamine Plus and Tanquest from Havco Herbs and Extracts. Call them today at 876-540-8871. That's 540-8871.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And in this, the second watch, we have been discussing the whole matter of, the gold rush, which has been taking place in Chester Castle, Hanover. And we're asking what's below the surface in regards to Jamaica's soil. In so doing, we have online Professor Simon Mitchell, Professor of Sedimentary Geology and the head of the Department of Geography and Geology at UWI. Professor, before the break, could I just ask you to rewind your comments in regards to the telltale signs? I mean, can we look on gold and know that it is gold just with the visible eye?
Some people can. When they've had that experience, they can actually recognize gold. And it has certain characteristics. It's malleable. It's moldable. It's this sort of thing. When it's in very fine grains, it still looks gold, whereas fool's gold is black if you make it very fine grained. So you can actually spot it. But in Jamaica, most of the gold that does occur, when it does occur, is microscopic and you cannot see it with your eyes.
So go ahead, sir. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so really you have to use other means to identify whether gold is present or not.
So what is fooling the persons who believe that there is gold in Chester Castle? What is it?
It's the color.
Which is what?
Which is a sort of, it's a golden color. It looks golden in color. When it's fresh, when pyrite is fresh, when fool's gold is fresh, it actually looks very similar in color to gold. The trouble is, though, if you leave it out, it will oxidize and it will start tarnishing and changing its color to a more brassy sort of color.
And becomes black eventually.
And it goes eventually black. It can go black. So in general, you will see quite quickly, this is gold, because gold doesn't do that.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why gold is the metal it is that it doesn't react with many things. So it stays gold colors pretty much, always. So when you find gold, there are a couple of minerals that do contain gold, and remember gold is an element, as part of the mineral, but most gold is actually just present as the individual mineral. So the individual element. So it is just gold in the field. So what you've got to do is you've got to get it out of the rock which it occurs in. Now, if it's big bits, it can be washed down rivers and deposited in gravels, and simply by washing gravels and collecting the heavy parts of the gravels, you can actually find gold. And there are many places where people go panning for gold. People have heard of the term panning for gold, and they talk about will it pan out as a phrase, and that comes from basically looking for gold.
For gold, okay.
Yeah, so you can find it like that if it's in large pieces. If it's in small pieces, you've got to do it a different way. You've got to actually extract it. And extracting gold, the two common methods are not very pleasant. One of them is to use mercury, and this is the sort of what is done in a lot of illegal small mining areas, and they use mercury. The mercury picks up the small pieces of gold, after the rock's been crushed, and then they heat off the mercury to reveal the gold. But of course, mercury is poisonous, so that one's not good. And the other method is to use cyanide, and we all know that cyanide is not very good either.
But I don't know.
So this is one of the things. So, there are new technologies coming up which are greener, but it is one of the problems. I mean, in northern Clarendon, where, of course, there was a gold mine, 15, 20 years ago, there they did use cyanide, and there has been a problem with that cyanide and looking after that particular cyanide.
Mm. The tests, Professor, can you tell us a little bit more about the testing procedure? How is that done?
Well, very typically how it is tested, usually the way that it goes by is somebody finds something that is gold-looking. Okay, you can send it away to companies which will measure the different metals within the actual rock. So they will pulverize the rock, and then they will look at the particular metals that are in there. So very typically you'll get what we call an assay back, and the assay will tell you what particular metals you've got. Now, you usually don't just get gold. So you might have a certain amount of gold, a certain amount of silver, maybe something like copper is common. You might get zinc, you might get lead. So you can get a whole range of different metals that can occur in these rocks.
Okay.
But typically the gold is not in very large amounts. A gram per ton, something like that. So you think about how much a ton is, and you think about having maybe 1 gram of gold in there.
Yes.
It's not a lot. You're not going to see a lot.
Mm-hmm. And the testing procedure, is it a long process?
It's relatively straightforward. It's more or less an automated thing these days. It's not done. It's not done in Jamaica. Usually these assays are done in places in the States, United States, and companies will send these samples out and get them tested and look for areas where you have higher concentrations of the metals they're interested in. Many companies will be looking for copper, and the gold will be a byproduct.
Yes. What are the prospects of finding more gold in Jamaica? Or any in the future?
There has been gold found. Very occasionally small grains do turn up in the rivers. So the Rio Minnow, for instance, does contain very small amounts, but not something that's going to make people rich.
When was this?
Well, you can probably find it today if you want to go and look, but it's not going to make people rich. It's very, very small grains, and they don't remember them. You could probably pan for a month in the Rio Minnow, and you might get 10 US worth of gold. It's not going to make somebody rich. But there are places. If you look at what the old geology of Jamaica is, the early Jamaican geology, we were part of a volcanic island.
Right.
And pretty much like what's in the Lesser Antilles now. And it's the fact that we were part of the volcanic island, which basically has these igneous rocks, and that's why we do have gold here and copper here. And they are associated with the intrusions that happened at that time. So it's really the older parts of Jamaica, the older rocks in Jamaica, where there is a possibility of finding more gold. And there certainly are areas where there is enough gold to make it, at least in one assay or two assays, something like that, to make it valuable. But you've got to prove you've got enough to make money out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got to put in a mine, you've got to extract material, you've got to process that material, you've got to get the gold out, you've got to employ people to do all of this. And obviously, doing that, you've got to spend quite a lot of money. So the question is, at the end of the day, is the amount of money you spend, is it less than the amount you're going to get out for your gold and other metals?
Yes.
And of course, if it isn't, you're not going to do it. So really, the companies that do this, they look for gold. They are looking for large deposits, which would, if they found them, probably worked in something like 10 or 15 years' time. It takes quite a long time to set these things up.
So would any section of the island more likely have more gold than the others?
Yeah. I mean, the central parts of the island and the eastern parts of the island are much more likely because of the types of rock.
The central part of Jamaica, you said?
Central part of Jamaica, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, northern Clarendon, north, western St. Catherine, that sort of area there. Northern St. Catherine, northeastern St. Catherine, and then across through parts of St. Mary, Portland, St. Thomas, and St. Andrews.
So persons perhaps need to move to those areas just in case.
Well, as I say, each individual person probably aren't going to become particularly rich from looking for gold. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, from some of the comments that were made on Facebook about people saying they want rich soils.
Yes.
Because back after emancipation, some of the former sugar estates were saying, thinking about metals, and a lot of the people who were working there said, no, we prefer our soil.
Yes.
So there has always been this sort of thing about okay, do you use the fertility of the soils? And of course, the soils are often fertile here because of the fact that we once were a volcanic island.
Yes.
Long time ago. So we do have rich soils.
Yes.
Good for growing things in, because they got lots of nice minerals in there. Not the bauxitic soils; they tend not to be so good. So in some ways, you've got to look at the best ways to use different parts of the island for different things. I mean, the thing we've also got to remember is that we all need metals.
Yeah.
I mean, our daily lives, we use a lot of metal. And gold is not just something that goes around people's necks or on their fingers as rings. It's also used in things like phones to actually connect components together. So actually gold has a lot of uses in electronics.
Yes.
As do a lot of other things. And these days we use these all the time.
Yes. We have one minute left, I believe, Professor. I need to ask you, if one were to discover gold, I'm not saying genuine, but if discover gold in his or her backyard, what would be the legal requirements and obligations? Do you know? I know you're not a lawyer.
Yes, yeah, but the real thing is that to look for gold, you need to have a prospecting license. And companies will have prospecting licenses that might already cover somebody's back garden or yard. So the thing comes in is, do you have the right to look for the gold? And the other thing is that you actually don't own those types of minerals. The government owns them.
Based on the law. So you find gold in your backyard, it's not yours. It's the government. Or the state.
It's the government. Yeah, but it's different for different things. But for metals, it belongs to the government. It comes from ancient history where, of course, it belonged to the crown.
Okay.
So it was what we would call, crown owns it. But what tends to happen is that you then pay royalties on it and you can extract it if you have something that works.
Wow. Well, Professor, thank you so very much for enlightening us in regards to this whole matter of gold vis-a-vis fool's gold. And we wish you all the best, sir, all the best for the year.
Yep, and to you and to everybody listening. And it's always interesting. There's always interesting things in geology. So, some of these things bring out the fact that there's interest in geology in Jamaica.
Well said, well said. Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again next week when we will continue to have topical discussions. Please join my co-host, Mr. Stokely Marshall, and we look forward to having you on. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guest. I'm Dylan Toussaint, and you're back to Love in the Morning with Jukal Dyer.
The JCF will leave no